Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben, and this is the Smoking Hot Confessions BBQ Podcast. Hey family, I hope you're well wherever you are and you got that thin blue smoke rolling. Coming up for you right now is episode 4 of season 7. And in season 7, we're focusing on all the delicious barbecue that's happening right here in Australia. And I'm kicking off this season, the first 10 episodes, I'm talking to the top 5 teams from the ABA ladder from 2019 and the top 5 teams from the KCBS ladder. So we're going to get some great barbecue info from the top of the pointy end of the spear right here on Smoke N Hot Confessions BBQ Podcast. Now, today's guest is Nathan Armstrong of Smoke N Daggers BBQ. You have seen him on the Smoking Hot Confessions socials before. We've done a couple of videos before. We've done a couple of Q&As together up on stage at some of the Brisbane and Sunshine Coast barbecue festivals. So he shouldn't be a stranger to you, but it is his first time to have an episode of the podcast. So I'm sure you're going to make him feel welcome. And wherever you're listening, at work, in the car, on the bus, whatever, just give a big cheer and clap your hands right now. Yeah, Nathan, woo! No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to find out about how Smoke N Daggers came about, how they got into barbecue, where they're going to go, and most importantly, we're going to get into their 2019 season, how that went for them, and how they managed to fight their way to come in second on the ladder for KCBS. So we're going to talk about all sorts of different things. They won my favorite competition, the Burleigh BBQ competition down here. It's my local. I didn't get to compete this year, so that's why he won. I'm just going to say it right now. No. He whips me silly whenever we compete together. We're going to find out what Nathan's got planned for 2020, and he was even gracious enough to send me a copy of a spreadsheet with his entire history of barbecue competition results. So we're going to pick a couple of the more interesting sort of standout results there, and we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to get into the always contentious open beef category. So we're going to find out what Nathan has to say about that, which is going to be very interesting indeed. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it.
This is the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions BBQ Podcast with your host, Ben Arnott. How long's it been since your last confession?
Nathan of Smoke N Daggers, mate, welcome to the confessional.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, man. You are always welcome. So, Smoke N Daggers BBQ. First of all, I got to ask, where did the name come from? I love it.
Well, originally when we first started talking about competing, we had to come up with a name, and we actually had one that we were really keen on, but being fresh to barbecue, didn't know if the team had it or not, so I thought the quickest way would be to just put it on the ABA page, and I quickly got spanked because there was a business with a similar name, very, very, pretty much the same name. So I found out very quickly that name wasn't ideal. So then we just, I guess, threw some names around and it just popped out and worked really well. We went with that.
I just love that it's got the word daggers in it.
Yeah, it was a draw card, I suppose. Makes sense, smoke, knives, it all works. Helps that myself and Mark, one of the other teammates, have spent a lot of time in the meat industry. So we've spent a lot of times around knives. So it sort of just sits home with us.
Oh, right. So are you, do you have a background in the meat industry as well?
Yeah, I spent 10 years in the meat industry, working pretty much from the floor all the way up. So spent a lot of time, and Mark is still in the meat industry. So we both have a really strong meat handling background, which has definitely come into a big advantage in barbecue.
So do you mean as butchers or in an abattoir?
In an abattoir.
Oh, so, right. Okay. Yeah. So you're right at the start of the process.
Yeah. So we definitely have a really good understanding of how animals join together and all their components and what that means. And we usually find Mark floating around a team's tent, sharpening knives for them or doing stuff like that because it's just sort of what we're used to.
Yeah, it'd be second nature pretty much, wouldn't it?
100%.
Yeah. So when it comes to abattoirs in Australia, is there any way that we do things differently to other places? Like what sort of makes Australian meat processing unique?
It's mainly more about the names and the cuts and how we process them. So we just do things to an Australian standard. It's a little bit different than what you'd get like in America. Just a lot of the times it's just the names of the cuts are different. But yeah, very similar.
So is that what's referred to as a boning spec?
Yeah, exactly. So you'll have like the Australian standards for boning specs, and then but a lot of times that also breaks down into customer level. So each customer will have their own boning spec or slicing spec. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting life.
And when you say customer, you mean like a butcher or a supermarket or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. See, I thought there was just one standard boning spec per animal, like per protein, beef, pork, lamb.
There's a standard, but then customers will have their own specifications if they want to do things a certain way, and then the animals will get broken down according to that.
Interesting. So how many butchers would you say nowadays actually break down the animal in their shop?
In an actual butcher shop, not many. Most of them get boxed beef, so they'll buy. So they want rumps or something, they'll just buy a box of rumps that'll come from a abattoir or meatworks, and already cryovac and ready to go. There is definitely a few around that'll still get their own sides in. Like we're lucky with our sponsor, Schultes at the Plainlands. They have their own abattoir, so they actually source their own cattle from farm station, and then they'll bring it in and break it down themselves, and then bring the sides into the shop and break them down further. So we're really lucky in that aspect.
Wow. Yeah. So they can really control it, like from literally out in the paddock to in your hand-in box.
Yeah, 100%. It's really, really helpful. If we have, American barbecue cuts aren't standard butcher's cut in Australia. So, it can be a bit difficult to get really particular things, but Pete and the team have been really helpful. They pretty much, we just showed them what we needed and they were able to deliver exactly what we wanted. So it was great.
That's awesome. So what would you say would be the most difficult to get cut in Australia then? Because it's different to, say, like traditional American barbecue.
Yeah, I think these days just trying to get good pork ribs. Like beef ribs are pretty easy to get. Briskets, like to get a good American barbecue brisket is definitely getting easier. Most butcher shops will be able to get it for you now. Just to get a decent set of pork ribs with a decent layer of meat on it, because most butcher shops would just see that as wastage. So, trying to get those, and that's why, some pork ribs at Costco are so popular, because they do leave a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah, they do sort of sacrifice a bit of the belly meat there to get those ribs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically the belly that's coming off those ribs, you wouldn't be able to get bacon out of or sell as pork belly. It'll just end up being too thin.
Yeah, right. Oh, bacon. I'm so hungry right now. I just got back from the gym and I haven't eaten dinner yet and I'm starving, and you just said bacon. That's just ruined me.
That's not good gym food unless you're on keto.
Well, hey, if anyone was built for keto, it's me. So, all right. So what was the process of getting into barbecue for you?
So when I left school, I lived in the States for 12 months and traveled around. So I sort of, got a bit of a bug for it. And then we came back and just sort of fell away for a while. And then I heard about the Burleigh BBQ Festival which was a couple of years ago now, and thought I'd just give it a go. So I actually volunteered at that barbecue festival on the gate, just so I could get an idea about what to do. And it piqued my interest. I met some really great guys while volunteering. And then myself and Nathan went for a walk around and thought, well, we can do this. Nathan's a boilermaker by trade, so we started throwing ideas around of being able to make the smoker and what we could do. And it all just started from there. And a few months later, we were at Bundy.
Right. Wow. So,
Never.
right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just looking at that spreadsheet that you sent me. So Bundy 2018 was your first ever competition.
Yeah.
You got some pretty solid results there for your first ever competition. I'm just looking at it. 25th overall, 33 brisket, 18 pork ribs, 17 pork, 18 lamb, 12 chicken. Now that's a
we were
40 team competition. Yeah.
Yeah. We were super stoked. We went into that comp, and myself, Nathan, and Mark had never actually cooked together, and we had never cooked on that smoker. And we just rolled into the comp and thought, we'll give it a crack. And what's the worst that can happen? You spend the weekend drinking with guys, eating some barbecue. You can't go too wrong.
No, it's happy days all around there, isn't it?
Yeah, and we were super lucky that, we'd met some really good guys. One thing you can say for the barbecue scene in Australia is that I don't think I've met a team yet that hasn't been welcoming and helped you out. They'll always hold secrets back, but, like Aaron from Smoke Hunters was a massive help to us at the start. He really, guided us into the barbecue and what to expect. And I spent a bit of time talking to him before the Bundy. So that really helped. I happened to talk to Chris from Barbecue Mafia and just sort of developed from there. And the guys were really helpful and made us feel welcome in the first comp.
Yeah, that's what I love about the barbecue scene. It's amazing how many times you hear people say that, and it's absolutely true. It's fantastic. I just love it. So do you have an overall goal with barbecue? Are you looking to turn it into a business? Is it a hobby? Are you looking to be at the top of the competition ladder?
It's definitely a hobby. We do some catering on the side. Like, we are set up as a catering business as well, and we pick up some events every now and then. But all three of us, we have some pretty full-on day jobs. So I don't think we want to turn it into anything other than a hobby. We're really like just cooking for the fun of it, really. We don't want to get to the point where we have to cook.
Yeah, I think once it crosses that line into work, it's a bit of a danger zone. Like, you've really got to love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so 2019, you finished up second place on the KCBS ladder. Tell me about 2019.
Yeah, 2019 was great. We had a really solid year. We did 7 comps that year, 3 KCBS and 4 ABA. It was really, 2018 was just our beginner year, but 2019, I think we really hit the ground running and really sort of understood what each teammate was good at, and we sort of synced quite well. So, we've always only had the 3 team members in the team, and we've all really split up into our own little roles. And I think 2019 showed that we can work well as a team. So, really solid.
Yeah, I'm just looking at your numbers here on your spreadsheet. There's a huge jump from 2018 into 2019. So I don't know what sort of competition, what sort of practice you did between August 2018 and January 2019, but there's a marked jump there.
It was really Bundy. Like Bundy the first year was our entry, and then Bundy last year. We got some decent results. We come 8th overall, but chicken bombed, and I think that comp, we really went back to the drawing board with some cuts and changed up what we did and really got more structured in our approach. And I think that really set the way for the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, just to sort of fill in the audience on the numbers, you said you did 7 in 2019. You did 3 in 2018. So you've only done a total of 10 competitions. 3 of them were KCBS this year, and you need 3 to qualify for the ladder, and you finished second on the ladder, mate. Those are outstanding results. Absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, we were really cheering about KCBS. We were super unsure about doing them at all. And we talked a bit about doing Cleveland, whether we were going to do it at all. And we thought, oh, we'll give it a go and just see what the KCBS is like. We ran quite well in that comp. So that sort of prompted us to do Burleigh, because we were really tossing up whether to do Burleigh or to do Kingaroy. But then with the good result in Cleveland, we thought, oh, we'll give Burleigh a crack. And if we run okay in Burleigh, that would prompt us to do the Aussie World Comp to get our 3.
Yeah. Once Julian confirmed the comp at Aussie World, I think that really sort of made a lot of people in Queensland at least pay a lot more attention to the KCBS ladder.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool stuff. So yeah, Burleigh. We've talked about Burleigh. You won it. You absolutely whooped it. Just looking at your little chart here. First overall, first in brisket, third in pork ribs, 10th in pork, first in lamb, 9th in open beef, third in chicken, and
open beef was the secondary brisket.
Ah, right, from the sponsor.
From Black. Yeah. I didn't want to put an extra row in for one comp, so I just called it open beef.
Fair enough. Okay, so that was the grass-fed brisket, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. And I think I spoke over you when you mentioned the name of the sponsor there, so just give us that again.
I think it was Black Onyx, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, that's good because I forgot it as well. So that was why I was pushing you for it. So, yeah, you absolutely creamed everybody at Burleigh there. What's come about from that win for you?
Yeah, so that was a really, it didn't feel like a more incredible cook than any others, but we just ran really smoothly. Our timings were perfect. And we just had a great comp. And, yeah, so that gave us entry into Royal, which we're super excited about. Yeah, so comp was great. Couldn't ask for a better run, actually.
No doubt. And getting an invite to the Royal, man, you've still got to be pinching yourself about that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. We're really keen to go over. We just got to fund it. So
yeah.
It's not a cheap weekend.
Well, it's what, August, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got a while. You got sort of 7 months, and you're absolutely right. It's not going to be a cheap trip, but I'm sure you'll get there. So, did you get a bung in the jack for winning that as well?
I think he qualified for one. Yeah, I wasn't too concerned about the jack because I didn't think there was no way we'd be able to do both. So, really, to me, the Royal was always going to be the one I'd choose.
Right. Yeah. And that's
the jack. Yeah.
Well, the invite to the Royal is one in the hand, and the bung in the jack is one in the bush. So
yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't it be cool though if they did pull your bung out and then you had to choose between the two?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad thing. And I think they're only a few weeks apart, so it would make it a tricky choice.
Yeah. So do you have contacts over there that you'd be able to reach out to borrow gear?
No one. I do know of a few teams that have been over, so kind of hoping if it gets to the point we can start making those decisions that some of the Aussie teams that have been over and have the decent contacts will be able to help us out.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, mate. There's some good people out there with some good networks, and if you're listening to this episode and you're heading to the Royal and you reckon you can help Nathan out, shoot me an email, ben@smokinghotconfessions.com, and I'll pass you on to Nathan. So I guess that sort of leads us into 2020 then. You've got the Royal on the cards. How's 2020 shaping up apart from the Royal?
Yeah, it's a good start. Mentioning the Royal, I suppose, looking for a year ahead. So we're doing Kandaro Resort this weekend. We'll be heading up tomorrow morning, and then we're probably going to try and do 7 comps again. Haven't quite locked in what they were. We were keen to do the Goondiwindi comp that unfortunately got canned, but we've locked in Harvey Bay, Bundy, and then we'll play it by ear. We'd like to go to the Invitational. We sort of just missed out of top 30 for ABA at the end of last year. I think we ended up 31. But we'd like to definitely do invitational. And then, we'll just play it by ear.
Yeah, no doubt. So you mentioned Goondiwindi. That was going to be a KCBS. There's no Burleigh KCBS. Aussie World, I'm told, is going to be going ahead, and Cleveland. So that's 2 KCBS. Do you know of a third one anywhere in Queensland?
No.
All right.
I think KCBS might struggle this year in Queensland. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hopefully someone else will put their hands up and put on 1 or 2 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a shame to see that go. The more comps, the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think competition is a good thing. So, they're 2 totally different bodies. They have their own styles about them, and I don't think competition's ever a bad thing. It keeps everybody on their toes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And they have different rules for the different ways that they do things, and, it is a different strategy and a different approach from one league to the other. So, yeah, it's an interesting it's interesting to see teams transitioning back and forth between the 2.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about KCBS is the pork category, because I'm really bad at it. So I'm happy not to do too many pork categories this year.
Yeah, well, you don't get too many choices in the KCBS. They're very set in their proteins.
Yeah, if you're doing KCBS, you got to get good at pork.
Yeah, the money muscle, the spaghetti, the chunks, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I've cooked heaps of it. I just can't get it. I can't nail it. So
I don't know. You came 6th for it in Aussie World. You can't be doing all that bad.
Yeah, I get by. I just not happy. I don't think I've ever been happy with what I've put in the box yet.
Oh, really? How so?
I don't know. When you cook a real good brisket or chicken, I've always been happy with what I put in the box, but just something about the pork, I just can't, just doesn't pull my heartstrings. I just can't quite get committed to it. It's good, but it doesn't make me, like, as a judge, it doesn't make me want to go in and grab a piece. And I think that's really important. And, I struggle to get that out of pork.
Okay, so what protein does do it for you?
Oh, I'd eat brisket all day. Brisket, beef rib, decent chicken. You open up a box and it just looks like you want to eat it. Definitely, if I had to pick one, I'd be eating brisket all day.
Yeah, I think brisket boxes have the good fortune of being a bit easier to present neatly. It's it's a bit more difficult to present a neat looking pork box.
Yeah.
My first ever barbecue competition I went in, I didn't know anything about how to do chicken properly, so I cooked the chicken whole and then served it like pulled chicken, and it looked awful in the box.
Yeah, our Bundy 2018 pork was terrible. It was, I think, at the end of last year, I was flicking through photos, trying to put something up on Instagram to celebrate our journey across barbecue. And I didn't end up doing it because I couldn't find a photo from Bundy that I liked.
Oh, no.
So 2018 was a bad year, I think, for us and how you put meat in a box. And I know they say the look is only a small part, especially in ABA, it's only weighted a small part. But I really firmly believe that you eat with your eyes. And I personally feel like well-presented boxes score better than boxes that probably taste as good but aren't as well presented.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when it comes to putting together a hand-in box, what are you looking for? Like, do you have a particular format? Do you have certain rules, like things have to look a certain shape? Like, how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, so we put in every single competition, our boxes look exactly the same. We always have brisket slices and hopefully burn ends if they've cooked all right. The burn ends are always at the front. They're always in a line. Our pork ribs are always the same. Our chickens, like everything we do we don't change comp to comp unless we have to drop something. Like if the burn ends are no good, we won't throw them in, of course. But other than that, and it makes it easier for hand in because as a team, we already know what the box needs to look like. So it's just a case of getting it there. You know, we have one person who cuts and lays it out, one that'll glaze, one that cleans and takes photos. We're very structured. So it makes it easy for us because we're never mucking around with the box. We just get the product in there exactly how it needs to be. We always take a photo, and something that we've learned recently is about taking photos and actually looking at the photo, not just looking at the box, because you pick up for some reason we pick up a lot of things looking at the photo versus just looking at the box. So we do that every hand in.
That's interesting. And is it a straight over the top photo, or do you photograph it from the angle that the judges would be looking at it? How do you position your camera?
Pretty much straight over the top. So you're looking straight down on the meat, and then so they'll take a photo, and then he'll zoom in a bit, and we all look at it. And I don't know, it might just be us, but we always pick up on things that when you're looking at the box, you don't even realize, whether it's because you're looking at it a little bit differently or something. But it's just become a habit of ours, and I think it works really well.
You're listening to the internationally awarded Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with massive barbecue nerd Ben Arnott.
So Nathan, let's continue the conversation on these different categories. You wanted to talk about open beef, so let's unpack that. Tell us about the open beef category.
Yeah, I just like talking about open beef because it stirs people up. And it's so contentious. Like every time someone mentions open beef, that thread is 100 comments long. And it cracks me up every time. And it's usually me in there stirring the pot a little bit.
Never.
But I don't know. Like I said earlier, I think competition breeds better competition. I think open beef is just one of those categories. Like we've done it twice last year, and we went second place and first place in the two comps. And I can tell you for a fact we didn't put steak in either box, because that's usually the contentious bit is everyone's complaining that someone will just cook a Wagyu 9+ steak and get first place. And I don't know. I just find it really funny. You know, if it was me and I had to choose between a piece of brisket and a slice of steak, it's a pretty easy choice for me. I'd choose brisket every day. And when we do the hand in for open beef, we definitely weren't doing brisket only, but there was no quick cooks in the box.
Yeah, I think it might be a pretty decent strategy to keep a good steak up your sleeve. So if you absolutely mess up what you're trying to cook, you can just quickly bang a steak on the grill and throw it in, just so you're handing in something. But yeah. I can see why people are saying, you know, my 12-hour brisket against someone's 4-minute steak.
Yeah, but that's competition. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like saying my 9+ Sure Wagyu brisket versus someone's Black Onyx or Costco brisket. Like, you know what I mean? You're at a natural advantage cooking a heavily marbled piece of beef. So I think unless you get to the point where people supply the cuts, there's always going to be that argument.
Yeah, no doubt. I do have to say though that I actually prefer eating an Angus brisket to a Wagyu. If I'm cooking dinner at home, I find the Wagyu briskets tend to be a bit too much for me. But I can see why judges love it, because they get just one bite. So
yeah.
Which do you actually prefer if you're going to sit down to a meal of it yourself?
I would eat Wagyu all day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love it. Even, you know, in my household, we don't eat a lot of beef, but every now and then I will cook a steak and I'll struggle to share it. I love it. So, and the other thing with competition barbecue too is that, you know, there wouldn't be too many people handing in protein that hasn't been injected and hasn't had, a heavy application of rub on it. That's not home cooking. The judges are only having one bite. Whereas if you're cooking Wagyu at home, you're sort of leaving a lot of that off. So it's not quite as intense.
No, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah. I did grab a couple of Wagyu steaks there a little while ago, just ribeyes, just Wagyu ribeyes. And I was flat out getting through the whole thing. It was much too rich.
I haven't had that problem yet.
I took them over to the Sappers boys and said, hey, do you guys want to finish these steaks? They went, yeah. So what do you like to cook for your open beef category?
So we will usually cook brisket, and we've been cooking beef rib, and we just present it a couple different ways.
Ooh, I love beef ribs. Tell me about your beef ribs.
Yeah, we use Schulte's, their own beef rib, so Jagerbone beef that they source from their own station. Their farmer's been supplying them for decades now, so it's actually their beef ribs, some of the best things I eat. They're already denuded. They're perfect. You can literally open the packet, and at comps, we'll literally open the packet from the butcher shop and throw it in the barbecue. That's how well trimmed they are. And they're nicely marbled. So beef ribs, whenever we cook beef ribs, we're super happy because the prep goes down a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a plus. What was that word you mentioned before? Denuded?
Denuded. Yeah, that's just a technical term for removing the silver skin. So when you denude something, you're just taking it back to red meat.
Ah, okay. Awesome. I learned something new today. So why do you think it is, like, we've already discussed the fact that people get upset about the idea of a steak beating their brisket and all that sort of thing. Why does this stick in people's craw so much when we've got lamb open categories, pork open categories, chicken open categories? Why is it the beef?
I think it's the cook time. Like, I know chicken is an open category, but they all cook at a similar time. The lamb, you can smash out a lamb rack pretty quick, but it's all within, a few hours of the window. But yeah, I'm not sure. Just for some reason, perhaps because it's new, lamb's always been open, chicken's always been open, until last year, was it beef? It was just brisket or beef rib. And all of a sudden it's opening up. It just makes people nervous, I suppose, because a lot of people have cooked the same way for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. People are always a bit wary of things that are new. Now, the way I look at this open beef category thing, I don't know how old you are, but I remember as a child watching the Bathurst 1000 on the television. I think it was called the Tui's 1000 back then. And we would see things like Japanese four-wheel drives racing against, Ford Falcons and Holden Commodores and all that sort of stuff. And it was just a much more interesting race to watch than it is now. Now it's all custom-built frames with fiberglass bodies that kind of look like the original cars, but they all have to be, actually, until recently when Nissan and Volvo started bringing in their V8s, they all had to be V8, rear-wheel drive, and either a Holden or a Ford. And it just became so dull, I ended up just stopping watching the race. And I remember as a kid watching some repeats of old races with my dad back when you'd have minis sticking it to XW, XY, GT Falcons and stuff. And it was so much more interesting. And I really think that that's the potential that the open beef category has to have. We're going to see people putting in, little things versus big things and things that some people think are fantastic and other people think are rubbish, and then actually put them all in the mix and see who genuinely comes out on top. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, and if promoters take it on, it'll be interesting to see over the next few years who's actually winning, looking at the top three of each comp and what those teams are handing in, and the complexity of it. So it gives you a lot more ability. You know, in an open beef box, you could put 5 different proteins in if you wanted to.
Oh, imagine that.
Give judges a little bit of everything. You know, it'd be a pretty intense cook for you, and that would be a pretty intense window. But if you nail them, you nail them. Like, how good is the skill of a cook that can do a 12-hour brisket and a perfect steak at the same time? So.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of a disconnect there in my mind as well, with people saying, oh, you know, I don't want someone handing in a steak. There's a bit of a disconnect between that and the popularity of the SCA, which is all about cooking a steak.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, people don't want people cooking steaks in competition, but then the same people are lining up to compete in the SCAs, which I also love, because I think they're a fantastic well of creativity and a good time. So what do you think about that? Do you think there's a bit of a disconnect there with the I don't want to say hypocrisy, but cognitive dissonance, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's just the traditionalist. What is a beef? What goes into a beef box or a brisket box? And it's changing. It's evolving, and it makes people nervous. You know, SCA is very popular these days. It's getting more and more popular. It's not something that I'm really interested in, and we haven't competed in it. I just purely because I'm not that creative. Like, I look at some of the boxes and some of the hand-ins from the guys down south doing SCA, and I just couldn't think of that stuff. So we just stay out of it.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. I'd be left well behind in the creativity stakes pun. I'd be left well behind in the creativity stakes as well. But what was interesting was when I was over in the US last year, I went to a couple of these SCA competitions, and I got to meet Johnny Joseph and talk with Joey Machado and Junior Urias and these guys that are really at the top of the SCA game over there. And they just look at me and say, we don't do the ancillaries. We are only here for the steak.
It's interesting.
Yeah, very, very. I guess because that's where the money is. That's where the rings are. Is all about the steak.
Yeah, and it's decent money. Like, there's some comps with some decent money to cook a steak for 5 minutes. And it's interesting. I can see why it draws people. Yeah.
And it's great for bringing people together. I saw 3 and 4 people sharing a grill because there's a half-hour hand-in window.
Yeah.
So they all just sort of stand around one grill together and take turns doing their steak. It was really interesting. So do you think that there is a place for SCA marrying up to a KCBS competition? We've seen them marry up with the ABA in Australia. Do you think we'll see them marry up with a KCBS comp?
Yeah, I don't think there's no reason why they can't. There is ancillaries and KCBS, so they are obviously open to different things. I think it's really down to the promoter. Like, I would hope that, in Queensland, SCA is not massive at the moment. We've had a couple comps and it was really slow. So I think if anyone grabs the chance to get it more popular in Queensland, it'd be great for them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it'd really take off.
Yep.
It's Queensland. It's hot. It's summer. Most of us live near the beach. It's perfect for standing around with some mates, drinking a cold beer and cooking a steak.
Yeah, exactly.
So aside from yourselves, of course, in 2020, who do you think are the teams to watch?
We're always got one eye on Primal Iron. Those guys always have a good cook. The Mafia boys are always solid. They'll often just roll into a comp and take a GC away like they did last year at Harvey Bay. There's such a strong set of teams that you rock up to a comp and you just don't know. Like, there could be anyone takes the comp. We have some really strong teams in Queensland, which makes for some really good competition. It's really good to be able to go up to a comp and point out, 15 teams that can easily take first. Just makes makes you be a better barbecuer.
Yeah, doesn't it make the awards exciting when you're trying to do the math in your head, looking at those 15 teams going, oh, well, they got a second, they got a fourth, that one got a first, that one got a third, and you're trying to work it out in your head and you're like, oh, who are they going to call next? It's so exciting. Yeah,
it's really good. And, the other thing, I talked about Aussie barbecue teams being real welcoming. Every time there's an awards ceremony, like when we're handing out points and prizes, and every time the category winner's announced, everyone's cheering. I just think it's really good that everybody is really supportive, and when someone does well, 10 people will pat them on the back, say good job. He just makes the event.
Yeah, there's almost one of those ceremonial processions where they form two columns and they get to run down the column and everyone slaps them on the back. It's almost to that level.
Yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful.
Depends on who it is. Sometimes there'll be guys running from halfway across just to give them a hug.
Yeah. That's usually Bretto from the Mongrels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So talking about Primal, I reckon that they're overdue for a hot run. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the guys just cook well. And, I have a lot to thank Matty for his help. We really struggled with chicken and our results showed that. And, I got to the point, I think it was Bundy last year, I just said, I need to change my chicken, and just started doing some big changes, went back to the drawing board, changed what we were doing, changed how we, injecting, our rub changed, our cooking changed, and May really provided some guidance about what I should do. And I felt like it was a bit of a sounding board, and I could throw ideas on him and see what he thought and judged him. And I was sending him photos of it, and those guys just have a lot of respect for them, and they're overdue, way overdue for a good run.
Yeah, it's funny. You're actually about the sixth person or sixth team that I've spoken to that have told me that Primal have taken them under their wing. So, yeah, I agree with you, man. They definitely are due for some big things this year, and I really want to see that happen for them. They've given so much to the scene, and they continue to give so much. It'd be nice to see them, get some rings at the end of the year and some of those giant trophies.
Yeah, and they're just good guys, and there's a lot of teams that are like that. But I've found that, between Primal and Barbecue Mafia, they all sort of took us under their wing and helped us along. And, now we're lucky enough to be sponsored by Barbecue Mafia. And I think it's a good little family that we've got. And, yeah, it's just really good to be able to hang out with the guys at a comp. Be good to hang out with them this weekend. Haven't seen them in a while.
Oh, it's going to be like a family reunion. Yeah, that's great that you've picked up sponsorship with Barbecue Mafia. They're doing some really exciting and interesting work with their rub range and their new restaurant there. It's fascinating, even just from if you just sort of zoom out to the macro level and just have a look at what they're doing in terms of marketing. It's everything they do is on point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, have you been to the restaurant?
Not yet. No. It's
I've been a couple times and I haven't had a bad feed yet. The guys are all about the customer experience, right? Like I cooked with them at CMC last year when they did the festival at Willowbank. I gave them a hand for 2 of the days, and they would just not serve food that was no good. Like, I had Ballsy next to me, and I'm slicing, and he's tasting, and he's just, nah, you're not serving it. You're not serving it. It's no good. It's no good. They just have such a strong ethic for serving high-quality food, and that's why they're so popular. That's why they're doing so well, is because people go there and they don't leave disappointed. They go back and they tell their mates about it.
Yeah, if it's not the best, you're not getting it.
Exactly.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, you mentioned that Primal had given you some chicken pointers there just a few minutes ago. Do you reckon you can share any of them with us?
It was just about, how we were presenting and flavor profiles, and we had a massive change on how we presented chicken and how we cooked chicken. That it was really just the guidance about what they've seen in the past and what they have seen go well, because we're still relatively new. I think that was only our fourth comp, and it was just really good to be able to have mate, I practiced so much chicken back then. It was unbelievable. And, every time I practice it, take a photo, send it to Matty, and he'd give you some feedback and what he's seen. And of course, it's only presentation, but it was just really helpful as a sounding board more than anything.
Yeah, sounds amazing. It's fantastic that you had that opportunity to work so closely with them.
Yeah, and I'd hope that, there's teams out there now that could feel the same way about us. I think it's really important that, we've been to comps and we've seen teams and it's been their first time, and we've taken them and we've shown them what we do, and we've made sure they're okay and they've got all their equipment and made sure their knives are sharp. And, because I think it's really the pay it forward mentality that we were so well helped, and it really helped us along the journey, that we want to pass that on and pass it on to the new teams. Because the more teams we have, the more competitions they're going to be. The comps will get bigger, more people will get interested, and it'll just help the barbecue scene in Australia strengthen.
Yeah, beautifully said. The more the merrier, and we're all going to have a much better time together.
Exactly.
So let's sort of head towards closing out this interview. What would be your top 3 tips for these new teams that you're talking about that are coming into competition?
Yeah, easy. Number 1 is just do it. So just get involved. It's a competition. Worst case, you're going to throw away $500 or something, $600 between a few people. But seriously, the amount of things we learned in that first competition, we could have sat on forums or Googled for a year and not have learned that experience. So, all I would say to the new teams is just come along to a comp, get involved, have a go. The teams are super friendly. Everyone is welcoming and helps you out. Don't be scared to be at the bottom. Someone's got to be at the bottom. And when we first started, we went in fully understanding that we might be at the bottom. It doesn't matter. As long as you have a go and do what you think's right, do the best you can do, you're only going to get better. Second tip is don't get on the drink so hard. Seriously, there's some teams that, for us, when we go into a barbecue comp, we go to compete, and we go because we want to do well. We put a lot of money into barbecue and a lot of time. Drinking's definitely not at the top of our list. And I've seen new teams go in and get absolutely blind because it's exciting and they see everyone drinking, and just ruins the experience for them. Take it slow, learn what you need to learn, and then, you can develop your stomach later on.
Nice.
And don't forget parsley.
Oh, yeah.
Learn how to. We learned how to present parsley at the competition. We were parked up next to Aaron from Smoke Hunters, and he was thankful enough to come over and give us a go at our first box. But yeah, don't forget the basics. Don't overpack. You don't need the whole house, but don't forget the basics. Think about what you need.
Yeah, well said. My first ever barbecue competition, I didn't even know that we needed parsley. And I was looking over at the meat sweats, and I saw Vaughn sitting there picking all this parsley, and I went over and I said, "Excuse me, mate, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm just putting together a parsley box. We just make this, we just put some greenery in under the meat, and it just makes the meat look better." Oh, all right, thanks. So I went back to my teammates and I told them what was going on. I said, we've got to get some like stuff to put in the box, like greenery, you know. So they took off down the street and they grabbed parsley and coloured capsicums and bits of cucumber and all sorts of stuff. And so my first ever hand in boxes, I've still got the photos. They look like little jack-o'-lanterns. They've got little like chunks of red capsicum that have been carved into the shape of Australia and sat on top of the pulled pork and all this sort of stuff. It was pretty wild. All righty, mate. So I'm going to throw the studio over to you now. Give some shout outs to whoever you like and tell them where they can track down Smoke N Daggers BBQ.
Yeah, sure. I just throw out to our, we've been gracious to have good sponsors. So Schulte's at Plainlands, best butchers around. Barbecue Mafia obviously supply our rubs. We're lucky to have Brad King supplying our firewood this year. So really great guys, good for the local scene. We support local where we can. And you can look us up on Instagram, Facebook, Smoke N Daggers BBQ.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. So I just want to extend a huge thank you to you from Smoking Hot Confessions for taking some time out to come into the confessional, tell us all your story and give us all those hints. I'm sure everyone's got a lot out of it and they're all very thankful for it too. So, yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
And there you have it, family. That was Nathan Armstrong from Smoke N Daggers BBQ. Finished number 2 for the year on the KCBS ladder. So we found out his story about how he got into barbecue. We found out how his 2019 went. We heard all about Burleigh and the exciting things that winning that grand championship at Burleigh has brought about for him. And we had a detailed look, and this is the first time anybody from any team has ever been brave enough to do this on the show, has given me their entire history of barbecue competition results. So we got to have a deep dive into that and talk about the highs and lows in that as well. And when you do sit down and look at it, they have been absolutely remarkable. 10 competitions in total, 3 in 2018, 7 in 2019. The only KCBS competitions were the 3 they did in 2019 to come second on the ladder. That is absolutely phenomenal, and I feel very privileged to have had him in the studio sharing his story with us. So that's it for today's show. If you want to do me a favor, grab a friend, tell them about the show, and make sure you invite them to the Smoking Hot Confessions barbecue community on Facebook. Everyone in there is absolutely lovely. We are very welcoming. We don't take any guff, and it's just all about barbecue all the time. So make sure you grab someone, grab their phone, subscribe them to the show, and bring them into the Smoking Hot Confessions barbecue community on Facebook. And that's it from me. So till next time, take care of each other and keep on queuing.
Thanks for listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com for recipes, tips, and Ben's own confessions.